Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 83 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I'm Johnny Cullen, joined alongside Duane Steinel as always. We are pleased to be joined by Jesse Granger, beat writer for the Vegas Golden Knights of The Athletic. Jesse, much thanks. Repeat guest. Thank you for taking the time to come on and join us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. I guess it's three goalies, one mic today, huh?
Fucking rights it is.
Yeah, we have that. It happens every now and then whenever we have a goalie. I think latest who was it? Ole the goalie when Olaf Kolzig.
And then we had a weird one. You remember Jean-Luc Grandpierre? He works for Columbus.
Yep, he works for the media at Columbus. He's a goalie too.
Well, he's a forward turned goalie. So that was like 2.5 goalies, one mic.
Defenseman turned goalie.
Defenseman turned goalie, but he did have good boots, so we'll give him that.
Yeah, he got great boots. But thanks for coming on with us today, Jesse. Obviously, you guys are kind of been in the spotlight this season in terms of what you did in the offseason with Buffalo. I remember kind of texting you back and forth, not leading into that, but I remember just always saying Buffalo will never, ever win this trade if Jack Eichel comes back 100%. But I am pretty happy with the pieces that did return. Peyton Krebs is playing very well. Alex Tuch has really taken on a huge leadership role with this team. I think he has 8 points in 7 games, something like that, since returning to the lineup. And obviously the first round and second round picks, we don't know what that's going to be yet, but I guess it's going as good as it possibly could right now for Buffalo in terms of the return for that trade. But Jack Eichel did just recently travel with the Vegas Golden Knights on their East Coast trip that ended with a 3-2 win against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Just how close is he to returning right now? And what has the rehab been like for him? I know, it was really, spotlighted that he was pretty much on his feet right away after the surgery, the disc replacement. What's that been like from your side of things, covering that? And, what's the timetable for him to return to find the lineup?
Yeah, I've actually been pretty surprised at how easy and seamless this recovery has been for him. You think because it's a surgery that had never happened to an NHL player, because the Sabres were so hesitant to do it, I expected him to be out for quite a while. And he said he went to dinner with his parents the night of the surgery. He literally got the surgery and then went to dinner with his parents, which is crazy after undergoing disc replacement surgery. But I guess that's how seamless these doctors were able to do it. Now, he had that surgery in Denver, and then he flew straight from Denver to North Carolina, where he was working out. I guess the surgeon that worked on him had his team that helps people rehab was in North Carolina. And because Eichel didn't need to be in Vegas because he wasn't skating with the team, he's like, I'll just make it easier and I'll go to North Carolina and skate there. So he spent the first couple months, or I guess month and a half, of his rehab in North Carolina doing all that stuff. And then just a couple weeks ago, he finally joined the Golden Knights here in Vegas. Now he's working out at their practice facility, City National Arena, every day. He's skating with the team. As you mentioned, he's going on the road trips. He just went on the 4-game East Coast swing that they just went on. I was talking to Mark Stone about it, and it was interesting. He mentioned that when he was traded from Ottawa to Vegas, one of the hardest things when he was trying to get into the swing of things was the travel was so different. The way they got ready for the bus, the way they boarded the plane, the way, where they drove to get to the plane, all that stuff was so different that he was trying to learn all of that and play hockey. And he mentioned that he thinks Eichel doing all of this for weeks before he plays will actually help him to where when he gets back ready to play, it's okay, all I've got to think about right now is just the hockey. So that's good. In terms of his actual return to play date, he won't put a date on it. He says it's feel. He's I'm going to know. I'm not going to plan in 3 weeks. I'll be ready. I'm just going to wait. And then when I feel ready, I'm ready. And he seems to think it's going to be sooner, I think. And then when I talk to Pete DeBoer, he seems to be a little more conservative in the return. Like Pete DeBoer he'll usually say a month, maybe 2. I don't think it's going to be 2 months until Jack's back, but I do think it's probably going to be a month or so. I know some people were wondering if he was going to play against the Sabres here in a couple days.
Thank God, no.
I highly, 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 highly doubt he plays that game. It's not impossible, but the fact that he hasn't even started taking contact yet, he's still wearing the no contact sweater in practice. Like no one's allowed to hit the guy. I don't think you're going to throw him into game action, especially with a player of that caliber. The guy's got a huge contract. There's no reason to rush him back. It's not like this team is fighting for playoff spot. Like they're in the playoffs. So I don't see a reason to rush him back.
Yeah, that was going to be my first question is what color jersey is he wearing? Is he taking line rushes with the fifth line, the Black Aces, or is he still in that non-contact jersey? Obviously, you answered that for us. But what's it like to, he's got such a unique stride, right? Like seeing him skate, I've heard it described from Michael Haters as, weird and ugly, but from people, some people that know the game really well, it's a majestic thing of beauty. It sounds like we're talking about racehorses here. What was your first impression when you got to see Jack really get up and gallop? You know what I mean? Really get up to full speed.
Yeah, racehorse is a good way to put it. That guy's a horse, man. He's big. He's a big guy. He moves and so I compare it to in the NFL, there are guys who are just so tall. Like Vince Young was the one I immediately Cam Newton's another one that their legs are so long. They don't look like they're running fast. They look like they're just kind of trotting. And then you see a guy next to him trying to catch him. And it's like, oh my God, he's just running past him. That's the way Eichel skates. He doesn't look like he's trying all that hard. It doesn't look like he's going that fast, but he is.
Yeah.
He's smooth. To me, the thing that stood out the most, more so than the skating, is his release. I just love the way he shoots the hockey puck. He holds his stick up high, right? Like he doesn't lean down on it. He doesn't drop his shoulder when he's getting ready to shoot a hard wrister. He holds it up high, and he just kind of whips it. Just a tiny little movement of the wrist, and the puck's gone. And
we know,
right.
We know.
to me, that's what I noticed immediately. Like the first day he was on the ice, I'm like, man, this guy, he puts no effort into the shot, and he's just lasering him.
Yeah, that bottom hand, you don't typically see it stay where it is with the Eichel shot, right?
Right.
When we talk about in development, you shooting with your body, but for whatever genetic reasons and whatever developmental reasons he went through as a young player to make him the man he is today, it's to his advantage, because for us goalies, we're trying to read the blade, and when you have that top hand up so high, we don't know if you're going to pass it. We don't know if it's going to go, if the blade's curving this way or that way. And it's been for me, it's a deceptive release, and it catches goalies off guards a ton, as we've seen over the years here in Buffalo, as you're about to see, as you have seen in practice. So it's, he's a unicorn in that sense, where he has a different type of stride. He has a very deceptive release that isn't common in the way that you would teach somebody to shoot if they'd never played hockey before. But we've seen what he can do at his best. He can be a top 5, top 10 player in the world. Putting him with that group that you guys have already assembled is scary to me. I had the chance to play with Pietrangelo. He was my first captain in the OHL. And the amount of leaders in that locker room, right? You look at Stone, you look at Pacioretty, you look at, Pietrangelo, you look at Eichel. Anybody I'm missing out? It just seems to me
Robin Leonard,
right?
Very
you have so many voices in that room. And Pete DeBoer, I got to coach, I got to play against him for a year when he was leaving Kitchener to go on to the OHL. And there's another guy that I know he's bounced around, but I've never heard a bad thing said about the guy. He manages his players really well. I was listening to Agent Provocateur with Elaine Walsh, and he described a story about Peter DeBoer and just the amount of respect he has for him. And coming from an agent that, we all saw what he did with the picture and the sword, but to hear him talk about Pete DeBoer and me having a very little knowledge of him. Actually, our last episode, Duane Quickie brought up DeBoer's son and Steve Spott's son, which was interesting. Is Steve Spott still with Pete?
Yeah, he's the power play coach here in Vegas. Yeah, he kind of handles the special teams here.
Small world. Our last guest had coached a couple of their kids, but
Your special teams make it a hell of a lot better once you had number 9 in that lineup.
Yeah, they definitely can't wait to get him because the power play hasn't been great.
Yeah, it's gonna worlds better.
You know what? In getting away from Eichel, I know we'll get back to it. Looking at the Pacific, all I've heard, because I haven't, with 2 kids, I haven't been able to stay up super late. Everybody said it's wide open. Obviously, you guys are sitting at the top with 55 points. You have the Ducks and the Kings right on your heels with 54 and 53 points respectively. Who preseason saw that coming? I mean, did you have any inkling, Jesse, that the Ducks were going to be able to put together this type of season? Duane, did you?
Not at all.
I think we kind of, so they're a little ahead of schedule. I and the people who kind of cover these teams out here have been expecting LA and Anaheim. I mean, they've been drafting well. They've been collecting young prospects. Really well. I think they're a little ahead of schedule. I didn't think we thought that they would be 2 and 3 in the division right now. Obviously, that requires Edmonton to collapse the way that they have. So I guess that part was predictable. But in terms of Anaheim and LA, their prospects are a little ahead of schedule, and I think for LA. They're still getting a lot out of Kopitar and Doughty, guys that maybe people were wondering are they out of the point of their career where they can carry a team to the playoffs, and they're obviously not. They're playing really well right now. I still think if you're Vegas, neither of those teams, Anaheim or LA, really should threaten you much in terms of like a playoff matchup. The Golden Knights would be licking their chops at that. But like if you're Vegas, the dangerous team in the Pacific is Edmonton. Because as bad as they've played, if that team gets a goalie, they're going to be really good. And obviously, 2 of the best players on the planet can take over a playoff series. You only got a game or 2 can swing a playoff series. So I think while Edmonton is not as complete of a team maybe as LA or Anaheim, I still think Edmonton is probably the most dangerous team in that Pacific Division, just kind of waiting in the weeds.
Let me throw this at you. We, Edmonton's been all over the national media, or the National Hockey League media, and I'm sure you've seen that, covering them in your division. But and we saw that, I think it was a 7-game slide, ending with that thrashing by the Panthers. Since then, 4 wins in a row to start to climb back. They have that big 5-3 win against the Flames to cut their schneid, cut that losing streak out. They beat the Canucks in OT, which is nothing to write home about, but it's still, hey, it's back-to-back wins, it's points. And the next, 2 nights later, they beat the Predators in a shootout. Hey, that's 3, 6 points out of 6 points. And then
Preds are playing well right now too.
Yep. Yeah, and then they come back against the Canadiens. The Predators are nothing to laugh about. They are a team that I think might surprise some people come playoff times. But, they go into Montreal, take care of what they need to take care of. They have the pesky Sens, as I call them, as everybody has dubbed them today. Now, I think that's when that losing streak started to really happen, right, with that loss to them. So it's going to be interesting to see. My question back to you is, what about Calgary? How have you guys matched up against them? Because, like I said, I haven't caught a ton of your games. But when I look at them, they're sitting right on in that 4th spot, right? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going back to the normal playoffs where it's the top 4 from each division, or is it top 3 from each division and then wild cards, right?
Top 3 and wild cards.
So as of today, they would be, looks like they'd be 8th. Because them and Stars are both at 48th. Did they, that could be a potential 1st-round matchup if, unless Edmonton climbs up there. How have you guys matched up against them?
Calgary's really good team. To me, Calgary has been the best team other than Vegas in this division. At least I think they've kind of fallen off lately, but early on, they've been so healthy. Calgary didn't have a lot of the injury issues that Vegas was dealing with, and like the Avs were dealing with it, and a lot of the top teams were dealing with injuries. Calgary's been so healthy. They match up pretty well with the Golden Knights. I think Daryl Sutter gives Pete DeBoer problems in terms of when you look at those two coaching against each other, no matter what teams, whether Pete was in San Jose or Florida and wherever Daryl's been, I think Daryl his systems have matched up well against Pete's, and those type of teams that play really structured defense, they pack the box. We're not going to let you into the center of the ice. We're going to make you shoot from the outside. You're going to have the bulk of possession. Like, teams have kind of decided, like, it's so hard to play the possession game against the Golden Knights because they're so good at it. They just they outshoot teams single night. Every single night they outshoot teams. So I think teams have decided, let's not try to beat them at that. Let's give them 40 shots. Let's just try to make those 40 shots not dangerous. Let's try to keep them to the outside. Let our goalie make easy saves. Let's clear up the rebounds in front. And then eventually Vegas will make a mistake. They'll turn the puck over. With Pietrangelo and Theodore, they're so good at those outlet passes. But when you have guys that are
first passes are ridiculous.
But when you have guys that are that aggressive, they're going to turn the puck over. Like Pietrangelo and Theodore have a turnover, at least one a game, where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. And teams like Calgary, the last two teams to eliminate the Golden Knights from the playoffs, Montreal and Dallas, are two teams that are defensive. They packed the box. They waited for Vegas to make a mistake, and then they scored. So I do think that in terms of matchups, Calgary is a team that Vegas would probably not like to see. Like, they'd much rather play an LA or an Anaheim. I also think that, so when you look at the history of the Flames and the Golden Knights for the last 5 years, it's very strange because Calgary just crushes Vegas up in Calgary, and Vegas crushes Calgary in Vegas. Like, there are no close games between these teams. Almost every game is 6-1, 5-0, and they each win at home.
They're exciting hockey games. Your last article you posted with The Athletic, you did mention a lot about how, adjusting your game as you get healthier. Like you said before, you've dealt with the injury bug, the COVID bug, and another thing too is that's why, when you go on stretches like these, like when you start winning games, it's every point matters in this COVID world, right? Because it doesn't, it can be like Buffalo. We kind of, we up in like for 48 hours we had no clue who was playing goalie for the Buffalo Sabres. Craig Anderson was booked to be the backup, but they weren't ready for him to be the starter.
Me and Duane were waiting for a phone call.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like I told you, bring your make sure you have your pads with you when Buffalo comes to Vegas because they might need you. You never know.
Pete has told me I should bring my pads on the road trips.
Oh, buddy, I love it.
You never know, dude. I just, so every point matters, but you mentioned, trying to, fix your defensive style of hockey in your last article, especially as you get healthier and kind of, especially with a new face like Jack Eichel, who, some people in Buffalo may think it, but I think he is a very good two-way center who is, going to make that adjustment, however you guys adjust your system of play defensively. I think he'll be able to make that adjustment very well.
Before you answer that, Duane, I think that you're right and wrong. I think that Pete DeBoer and Steve Spott are going to have a lot to do with that because they are such good coaches when it comes to bringing in new pieces. But we also saw in Buffalo, and I don't know if it was just a lack of give a shit around the room. We also saw, I'll go back to a game against Vegas in their inaugural season where Jack got beat back up the ice, where that guy should never get beat back up the ice. And Vegas ended up winning in overtime. And granted, this is 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah. But for me, like, it was that lack of, as a center, if you're going to play center in the National Hockey League, especially in a top 6 role, you're going to need, you don't have to be Patrice Bergeron, or a Mark Stone. Well, I know he's a winger, but you're going to have to be able to commit to whatever system they're running. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jesse, but
no, you're good.
That's my one worry with Eichel. I think Steve Spott and Peter DeBoer will definitely help with that learning curve and that fresh scenery. Jesse, I just wanted to hear. I didn't want to
before you chime in, Jesse. I mean, again, that was also 4 or 5 years ago. Cully, like he's not.
Wayne, we saw that up until.
I think he's turned his defensive game around quite a bit.
Every player grows.
He's grown a lot since his second season.
If there's been one thing that Jack Eichel has been always kind of been given shit for is his lack of that ability to not match up and shut down the other team's best player. And I know that's not his role, but if you're going to be put out there on the road, especially when you don't have the line change, you're going to need to at least be an even player. You can't be a -3 just because you're an offensive juggernaut. You know what I mean?
The whole team was a minus everything. What do you? Come on,
right. I think it goes back to my original statement to Jesse. How much is Pete DeBoer and Spotter going to play a role in that? And where do you see Jack Eichel fitting in lineup wise? Because you guys have me and Duane talked about this off the air. When they get Eichel back, it's a wealth of riches in this lineup.
Yeah. So first of all, to the point of getting back, the center, you're the first guy back always. In the Golden Knights system, the center is not always the first guy back. They actually make it really easy on the center. I actually talked to Pete DeBoer quite a bit about this. Their system basically just deals with F1, F2, F3. There are no the only time
F1
the center
becomes the center.
Right. The only time the center actually is the center is faceoffs. And then as soon as the play starts, they basically and that's why you see a guy like Chandler Stevenson come in and just be phenomenal. William Karlsson wasn't all that good before he got to Vegas. He's been phenomenal. Nick Waugh is really, really developing into a good center. I think Vegas's system, it's partially Vegas's system that doesn't put as much stress on the center. I think the center is just one of the guys, whereas I think in other systems, the center, you have to be so much more aware and so much more responsible than the wingers do. And then I also think it's that Vegas just has defensively responsible wingers. Mark Stone, you mentioned him with all those centers because he's basically a center. I mean, he plays on the wing, but he's so defensively responsible.
When's
he's always
last
back
time
first.
we've seen a winger up for you? What's the award I'm thinking of?
Selke Trophy.
Always wins. When's the last time we've seen a winger up for the Selke, right?
And Stone probably will win one. But and it's not just Stone. Riley Smith is a phenomenal 200-foot player. Max Pacioretty has really grown his defensive game since coming to Vegas, and he's a guy who is almost never on the ice for a goal against. Jonathan Marchessault gets back. They've got so many good defensive wingers that I think it makes the center's job easier. So I think that will be refreshing for Eichel. Okay, it's not on me. I'm just one of three forwards instead of playing that role. And then I also think that I think this fresh start for him can be good in terms of when you're on a team that they all want to win the Stanley Cup, but when you're halfway through the season and it's pretty clear we're not going to the playoffs, guys, there's a lot less motivation to make that back check. And when you're losing that game by 3 goals, and rather than a team that you're expected to win the Stanley Cup. If you don't win the Stanley Cup, this season is a complete failure. That's it. It's the cup or you failed. And I think that those expectations, especially for a guy like Eichel, who's been in the league as long as he has and has not played in the playoffs, he hasn't experienced that. I think at least initially, it won't he's going to be back checking his ass off. 5 years from now, if he's still in Vegas and he signs a new contract, maybe the newness might wear it off. But I don't right now. I don't see any issues in terms of his defensive skill or in terms of his defensive effort.
Two-part question. Sorry, Duane. Nolan Patrick, what have you seen? I haven't kept up with it much. He was somebody that I was a big fan of early on. I know he's dealt with the migraine issues and everything therein. I was happy to see him get a fresh start. Is he still playing on that top unit with Pacioretty and Stone?
That was just for the one night because Chandler Stevenson got put into COVID protocol while they were on the road. So Patrick jumped up there. But for the most part, he's been on the fourth line. He's been a fourth line center for this team. And he started off the season pretty rough. He got injured and then he came back and he just didn't look very good. And I think lately, here in these last 3 or 4 games, the Golden Knights' fourth line has really, on that road trip that they just went on, they played basically the best teams in the league. They went to Washington, to Carolina, to Florida, and to Tampa. And the fourth line basically carried the offense. The top 6 were struggling to score. Stone was out with COVID. Pacioretty had just come back from wrist surgery, so they weren't quite going yet. And Nolan Patrick, Brett Howden, two guys who they brought in the offseason, have been really good. William Carrier scoring a few goals.
Former Sabre William Carrier.
Yeah, he's been scoring a lot lately. So Patrick and that fourth line here in the last couple weeks has been trending in the right direction. Prior to that, I was really worried about the way Nolan Patrick looked in Vegas. Like, I thought he was heading for not even going to be in the lineup once guys got healthy. I think he's starting to play his way back into a spot right now. But this team's so deep. You mentioned the center depth. You got Jack Eichel at 1.
So nasty.
William Karlsson at 2, who's obviously really good. Chandler Stevenson is the team's leading scorer right now. He has the most points of any player on the Golden Knights.
Was it 43 points right now? I think he has.
Yeah, he's almost a point. He's almost a point per game player, and he's the 3rd best center on the team. And then Nick Waugh is a phenomenal. Like, I think Nick Waugh is considerably better than Nolan Patrick. So Nolan Patrick's the 5th best center on this team right now. He can play the wing, and that's probably where if all 4 of those centers are healthy, Nolan Patrick's going to have to play on the wing.
Let me ask you this: is Nick Waugh, Dadonov, and Janmark, have they played together most of the season?
Not most of the season, because the Golden Knights. So, like, Stone was out for a long time. He missed a couple months. Max Pacioretty has had 2 different injuries that caused him to miss a month or more. William Karlsson broke his foot and missed 2 months. They've had so many injuries that their lines have just been constantly shifting, constantly. But that is the most stable third line that they've had. Janmark, Dadonov, or actually, sorry, Janmark, Waugh, and Kolasar. Because Dadonov has been being bumped up to the top 6 because they've pretty much at all times had at least one top 6 winger out with COVID or an injury. So Dadonov, he hasn't really been able to slot into that third line role that he will probably be. He'll most likely be a third line winger because of the guys above him, assuming they don't trade someone. If they trade like Riley Smith, for example, to open up cap space, then Dadonov will fill in his spot on that second line. But I mean, they've got some really talented guys that could be playing third line minutes. They're going to be a matchup problem for most teams.
Yeah. Do they need to open up cap space before Jack comes back?
Yes.
Yeah. How much are we talking?
It's so complicated. These guys have like.
What do you mean to put you on the spot?
No. I've been poring over it. I think it's somewhere between $6 maybe $7 million that they would have to clear out. If you look on like Cap Friendly, it'll show you like 10 or 11 million. I don't think it's that much because they're going to waive some guys. They're going to, they're not going to have to trade 10 million. They're probably going to have to trade a good $6 million in cap space.
With a trade deadline coming, I think every team in your position, when you're considered like as much of a contender as you are, you want to try and make maybe at least one move that's going to be a difference maker to that lineup. But your team is just so good and so deep. Like who is the odd man out there? And, to have it to clear that kind of money, again, who would it be?
So there are a few ways to look at it. And I mean, like, so the easy one, the one that everyone automatically goes to because it's the easiest one is Riley Smith. And it's because he's an unrestricted free agent this upcoming offseason. He's playing well. He's only making $5 million right now. He's probably going to get a raise. Like if he hits the open market, Riley Smith will for sure get a contract of more than $5 million a year.
Probably in the 6, 5, 7 range.
Yeah. Right. So the Golden Knights are worried that they're going to lose him anyways. So I could see them moving him before the deadline. That pretty much clears the cap space. You maybe have to move, like waive a couple guys, but nothing major outside of him. The only problem is Riley Smith is so important to this team. I mean, this guy is
that line too.
Favorite player. Like
he came into the league.
Yeah. Riley Smith is like every coach's favorite player. I can send him over the boards for the first penalty kill unit, for the first power play unit. If we're up a goal in the last minute, if we're down a goal in the last minute, whatever the situation is, Riley Smith is like the guy for that situation. So I could see Pete like lobbying to the front office, like, look, we have to find another way because this guy, like if we're going to win the Stanley Cup this year, I feel like Riley Smith is an important piece of that.
He's got every tool in his toolbox.
Right. So if you're trying to find another way to scrounge up $6 million, I think they could trade some ancillary pieces. I think for one, Loren Brassois is one of the highest paid backup goalies in the NHL. And
why is that? When did he get that contract?
This offseason, just this past offseason. And I don't understand it. But I think the Golden Knights Leonard hasn't been the workhorse, right? Like he, even on Long Island, when he was a Vezina finalist, he was still splitting with Grace. Like it was like almost,
I think he played like 50 games.
So I think the Golden Knights were, when the Golden Knights traded Marc-Andre Fleury, they were worried like, okay, are we really going to hand the keys over to this Stanley Cup contender to a goalie who's never played 60 games in a season? So they wanted a really stable veteran backup. And that's what Brassois is. But now that Leonard has has like, I think those worries are gone. Like Leonard's playing well enough. He could play better. I mean, especially like he had a stretch there where he wasn't playing well, but he is now, and he was at the beginning of the season. He was their best player on the team. I think when you get to the playoffs, ideal scenario is Loren Brassois never touches the ice. The backup goalie will never touch the ice in the playoffs. So if I'm trying to look for ways to move salary without impacting the playoff lineup, Loren Brassois is the first one. So to me, that would be my first move. That clears about a couple million. Then you've got Matthias Janmark, who's making $2 million. And I think Janmark's a good player, but I think he's a guy, like, he's not going to kill you if you move Matthias Janmark. I think there are little pieces
and
like
he's
that.
a UFA.
Yes, correct. They only signed him to 1-year contract here this past offseason. So he would make sense. So I think that they're like this team can get away with like not trading any major piece. I think Dodonov may be a little harder to move than Riley Smith because he's got term left on his deal.
That was going to be my next question.
If it was me and I'm like, okay, we've got to trade someone that's worth $5 million. Well, they have 3 forwards that make $5 million. It's Jonathan Marchessault, Riley Smith, and Evgeny Dodonov. And to me, Dodonov is clearly the guy that you would want to move of those 3 because while Dodonov has been a very good player for this team, he's been much better than he was in Ottawa. He's looked more like the guy in Florida, not quite the 30-goal scorer that he was when he was playing with Huberdeau and Barkov, but he's looked closer to that than he was in Ottawa. So I think if it was me, and I don't know, I'm not the GM. I'm not talking to GMs. Like maybe other GMs are telling Kelly, like, nah, we don't want Dodonov. We're not taking that contract. Then your hands are tied, right? So if you could move Dodonov, I would definitely move him before I'd move like a Riley Smith, especially a Jonathan Marchessault, who's been awesome.
It's almost like Duane, correct me if I'm wrong, or Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong. It's almost like from a management point of view, do we kick the can down the road to next season and to deal with this? And do we go all in here now that we have Jack Eichel healthy? And you know what I mean? Make some smaller moves to keep our core intact, or do we get rid of a UFA that we know? Like, here's what I think it comes down to. And correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a way to get Riley Smith signed at the number he wants and to keep your core of players intact? Right, with the Eichel contract coming on.
So tough. That's so tough.
I mean, it would require trading someone that's $5 or $6 million.
Yeah.
And again, I think I would trade Evgeny Dodonov to make room for Riley Smith. I'd sign Smith to an extension. They just signed 3 players to extensions yesterday.
Yep.
Brayden McNabb, Michael Madio, and that's clearly
Logan
in preparation. Thompson. That's clearly in preparation for this move that's about to happen. Brayden McNabb was in the same spot Riley Smith was in, a UFA who's going to get a pay raise, who may be gone. They locked McNabb up for a very reasonable salary. Now he's no longer on the block.
285 is good for him.
Right. So I could definitely see Riley Smith signing and the thing is, when I say Riley Smith is going to get $6 million on the open market, that doesn't mean he's getting $6 million in Vegas. He may take less to stay in Vegas. Zero. There's no state taxes in Nevada. So that helps. That helps. And also Riley Smith has a house here. He doesn't want to move. You know how hockey players are. They don't want to move their shit. So Riley Smith would take less to play. Like, I think right now, if they offered him a contract and they said, look, Riley, we're going to have to trade you if we can't sign you to an extension. There's no other option. Here's what we can offer you. I think he takes it.
Do you think he gets
as long as it's within reason
money at 5'9"?
Right, within reason. Yeah, probably somewhere between 5 and 6,
which is well deserving. He deserves that kind of money. That's how good he is.
When we're talking about on the open market, let's just set the ceiling at 7. Let's say he plays for the Anaheim Ducks. He's only getting what, $4 million out of that, right? Like with the
California would kill him. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's the way I would approach it as a GM, Kelly. If or Mr. McCray.
Players aren't stupid; they know.
But no, it's just going to be really interesting, Jesse. And I mean, I'm sure you're going to have to keep your carpal tunnel on notice with the articles you're going to have to write. What is the trade deadline this year, guys? I'm sorry, I don't know. That's I'll throw some money on the phone, Duane.
It's in March
1st, I think.
Yeah,
March something.
It's coming up pretty quick on us. You know,
a month away.
Yeah, and that's like another thing too. Is you mentioned earlier, do you go all in? Without having to trade a Riley Smith or a Danilov and just find other ways to free up that cap space, or do you sign Riley Smith to an extension and have to part ways with a piece that could help you, win a cup this year? That is the question. Another thing too is you said possibly, trading Brassois. Like, is Logan Thompson a kid that's ready to come in and be the backup goaltender, or is that a situation where you got to bring somebody in to be your backup?
I'm sure.
No, I think Logan Thompson's ready.
Is he ready?
Oh, okay.
They could, if they like. I don't know how they feel about Logan Thompson. They could easily get, like you said, there's so many veteran goalies out there that you can get for the league minimum. Like they could get a guy with experience if they want. But Thompson has been the best goalie in the AHL for 2 years now. And he won whatever the Vezina is of the AHL. I honestly don't remember what the name of it is, but he won it last year as a rookie.
Yeah.
As an AHL rookie. That was his first year in the AHL. And then this year he's been phenomenal again. And he's been on the taxi squad, so he hasn't played a lot in the AHL. But he practices with these guys every day. Like, I think Logan Thompson right now can be an NHL backup goalie. He's ready for it. Now, if Leonard goes down,
that's what hits the nose on the head for me. If, they know what's best for him for his development is the AHL, but if he's been up with the taxi squad, that to me, and I could be wrong, I could be writing on the wall that's not there, but to me, couldn't that be them saying, hey, we're preparing him to just step right in seamlessly? No? Or are they required to keep somebody on the taxi squad?
Yeah.
When I saw Logan Thompson signed to a 3-year extension, the first thing that came into my mind was, well, they might be trading Loren Brassois, because they're trying to lock this kid up for 3 years before they hand him the NHL job and try to get him for that price. Well, so that was my immediate thought when I saw that contract.
One thing on my mind too is obviously, I think if you had an option of maybe, even if he is ready, maybe bringing in a more experienced veteran who could handle the task if a Leonard were to go down. I mean, we have a guy right here in Buffalo. I would hate to see Buffalo trade him away, but I'm a huge Craig Anderson fan. But there's a guy on this team that I would love to go see win a Stanley Cup. It would be Craig Anderson. Granted, he's 40 years old, but the guy has more experience than anybody on this team right now in terms of playoff hockey, and he's played very well for Buffalo this season. He made his return after missing 32 straight games with an upper body injury. Comes in and makes 27 saves. Granted, it was the Arizona Coyotes, but played very well. Before then, he was playing very well. He misses 32 games, and he still has the most wins of any goalie on the roster right now with 5. Just to kind of tell you how our season's going. But
and he's on the veteran league minimum at $750.
Yes. And a 1-year deal. So
he's really good buddies with Robin Leonard too. Robin, when I talk to Robin, he talks about Craig Anderson all the time.
I love Craig Anderson.
You got to remember in Ottawa, that was his main mentor, right? Like when I think was it Binghamton? Yeah, it was Binghamton at the time. When Robin won the Calder Cup. But like every training camp, I remember reading an article, I forget when it was, maybe it was here in Buffalo, Duane, when Robin was here, but just when Craig Anderson came to town, but just how close they are, right? And I didn't realize that. I knew Craig signed for a low number, but
it was he's a 1-year deal. I mean, people thought he was going to retire regardless. But I honestly, up until he came off the taxi squad in Washington, I thought he was retired. I had no clue he was still in the league. But again, he's played very well for us, Cully. Like he's done.
I think he's
way better than expected. 100%. And we were discussing too. I mean, this Buffalo Sabres team, and I'm not going to say they would push for a playoffs. I think they're at least a 500 hockey team right now if Craig Anderson doesn't get hurt and you're forced to play essentially ECHL level goaltending through 32 games, after the UPL injury too. I think you're a 500 hockey team. That's the difference I think Craig Anderson could have made for this roster. And I could definitely see a team like Vegas, especially with that relationship, as you said, with Robin Leonard already there. I could see a guy like Robin, if push came to shove, him maybe advocating to bring a guy like Craig Anderson in to be his backup. And I'd love to see him win a cup. I'm not going to lie, because I think once Jack comes back and he's 100%, you guys are the odds-on favorite to win the Stanley Cup this season. Yeah,
I mean, on paper, Vegas has the most talented team in hockey. We'll 100%. See how it all fits. we've seen in hockey, the trades don't like when they traded for Max Pacioretty, the first season Max Pacioretty had in Vegas, he kind of sucked. Everyone in Vegas was like, "Oh my God, they just traded Nick Suzuki and all these picks," and he's not very good. But then he figured it out. Alex Pietrangelo, they signed to that massive deal last offseason. The first 3 quarters of that regular season, and it was only a 56-game regular season.
The
first
he
3 quarters,
himself.
He was not good. Yeah, it was like, this is who they gave $8.8 million to, and then the playoffs got here, and he's been the best player on the team since then. So it does take, especially star players who are expected to have that big of a role, it takes them some time when they get traded or when they change teams. So I'm not going to be totally shocked if this isn't the year. Like if Eichel comes in and it's just not, like if he's just not Jack Eichel, but then next season he comes in at training camp, gets a full camp, gets with the guys and is Jack Eichel. But at the same time, Jack Eichel's a freak. He could come in and just be why you could easily see him stepping on the ice and being the best player on the ice because he's just so good.
That's why I'm so happy it's not going to be against Buffalo, because if he debuts against Buffalo, man, he's putting three in the net. Like I think he'd be fine.
The one thing, Duane, you always used to say is that the one thing that the management failed to do in Buffalo was surround Eichel with talent, right?
Yep.
And you look at his best year here, and him and Skinner both have, those points. I don't know what happened with the coaching and off the locker room, but I wanted to kick it back. I know we're running out of time. With the Michael, how do I say his name?
Amadio.
So you guys signed your third goalie to an extension, and you signed. Say it again.
Michael Amadio.
Like that's got to be a precursor, no? Like we were hinting at. To me, is that just a move to get a guy off of UFA status and into your let's just call it into your security for the next couple of years, or is that the precursor to the moves we were talking about earlier? Like, do today's signings, are they writing on the wall for a guy like Loren Brassois and maybe a guy like Dadanoff, or hopefully not Riley Smith, but maybe a Riley Smith, right? Like, that's my main question to you.
Maybe, but I think Amadio's a fourth line guy. They're not going to be playing Michael Amadio where like Riley Smith is, for example. I think Amadio, they claimed him off waivers this year, so that wasn't their contract. And at the time, I don't even know if they would have claimed Amadio if they weren't so injured. Like they claimed Amadio and Adam Brooks off waivers this year. Both of them, when they literally were like, are we going to have enough warm bodies to put on the ice to play a hockey game tonight? Like we aren't sure if we're going to have enough people to ice a team because everyone is injured or has COVID. So when they claimed Amadio, I think it was more of just hey, that guy plays in the NHL. We'll take him. So, and then I think he played a couple games and they were like, you know what? This guy fits. He fits into our system. He fits into our locker room. We like him. He's super cheap. He's going to be a UFA. This guy is a bottom of the lineup player who we think fits what we want, both personality wise and the way he plays. So they just signed him to a 3-year or a 2-year deal to just get him on the books cheap. It's cost certainty. We've got an NHL guy who we can put in the lineup every night. He's not going to make a huge difference, but he's also not going to lose you the game. I don't see Amadio connected to like trading a winger, like especially a top 6 winger. I just think of it as, oh, this was a surprise. Like we picked this guy up just because he was a guy, and all of a sudden, we think he actually belongs on this team. Yeah.
But I guess my question is, with Eichel getting inserted into the lineup, he's not going to become, you're getting arguably Chandler Stevenson is giving you the most value bang for buck in the league, right?
Yeah.
He's been awesome.
So, I don't think my question, I didn't word it well enough. You're not looking to maybe signing Amadeo, I butchered his name, allows you to maybe not make one of the big moves that we were talking about, but several of the little ones. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see.
Yeah, it is.
One other thing too is we mentioned, again, Logan Thompson, Loren Brassois. I think if you're going to make that trade and ship out, wouldn't you want to do that sooner rather than later, just to really see if Logan Thompson can handle that type of role, get games in at the NHL level, see if he can handle it, not just like physically, because obviously physically can handle it, but mentally being put in that position, if you were to be thrown into the fire, Robin Leonard, can this guy handle it? I think that's if you're smart, the trade you make pre-deadline because you want to get this kid some games in to see if he can handle that type of responsibility. So come deadline, you can make that evaluation. Like, do we want to have this guy be our second horse, or do we want to go reach out to a Buffalo about a Craig Anderson?
Keep in mind, this kid was playing CIS hockey for Brock University 4 years ago, right?
I know, yeah.
His
rise has been crazy. I mean, he hadn't played above the ECHL level like prior to last season, and now he's where he is. Like his development curve has been crazy. To be completely honest with you, Duane, I think if Robin Leonard gets hurt, they aren't winning the Stanley Cup. I don't care if it's Loren Brassois in net. I don't care if it's Logan Thompson. I don't care if it's Craig Anderson. If Robin Leonard doesn't finish the season, the playoffs, the Golden Knights aren't winning the Stanley Cup. So to be honest, I really don't think it matters who the backup goalie is. I think this team is good enough to make the playoffs with Logan Thompson as its starting goalie because they're just that much better than everyone in the Pacific Division. And I don't think they're good enough to win the cup with any goalie below Robin Leonard. So I think to be honest, like I think keeping a better backup is like, it's not the security blanket you think it is, because you think like, well, we need someone if Leonard goes down. Well, yeah, but even if Loren Brassois is slightly better than Logan Thompson, like, is he enough better to win a Stanley Cup? Like, I'm not convinced Logan. I like Loren Brassois. I like his calm style. I like his style. I like the talking to him. He's fun to talk to. I don't think he's good enough to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. And before we let you go, I know you got to cut out here. Leading into this matchup against Buffalo, obviously you're going to see the returns of Alex Tuch and Peyton Krebs to Vegas, guys that have been really good for Buffalo since making their debuts. Again, we mentioned before, I think Tuch has either 8 points in 7 games or 9 points in 8 games, and Peyton Krebs, has looked very good on a line when he has played. I think on the power play unit with Alex Tuch, and then I think he's on a line with, I want to say it's Tage Thompson, maybe Dylan Cousins. No, it's not Dylan Cousins. It's Tage Thompson and I can't remember who else. But he's looked very good, especially in transition, playing with speed, and just the chemistry is there. What are you looking forward to see those guys make their returns? Because Alex Tuch is a guy who, was traded from arguably a Stanley Cup favorite to the worst team in the NHL, and the guy had a jokerish smile on his face. Like, he was excited to be in Buffalo, and he's taken this leadership role like in stride, and he's taken a lot of pride in it. And I'd imagine they're both looking forward to coming back to Vegas, and especially with more increased roles with these teams, roles they did not have at Vegas.
I'll start by saying I freaking love Alex Tuch. He's one of my favorite players in the entire room to talk to. Back when we were actually allowed in the locker room, it feels like it's been forever. If I didn't have a story to write that day and I was just kind of in there shooting the breeze with the players, Alex Tuch, it was either him, Subban, or Fleury, just because, me with the goalies, I would always kind of tend to talk to those guys. But Alex Tuch was my favorite player to talk to. He's such a good guy. He loves Buffalo, absolutely loves the state of New York. He's obviously from Western New York. If there is a guy in the world, like you mentioned, getting traded from Vegas to Buffalo, that sucks for 99.9% of players. Not Alex Tuch. He loves Vegas, and the guy owned a restaurant here. He was not happy to leave. But if there's a guy who's going to Buffalo that's going to enjoy it, it's Alex Tuch. That dude, he loves Buffalo. He grew up a Sabres fan. I got to write a really cool story a couple years ago about the neighborhood he grew up in near Syracuse, and he's just I'm pumped to see Alex back in Vegas. They'll have quite the tribute video for him. He was a Golden Knight. Like, when you see the Golden Knights logo and like you think of that inaugural season, like Alex Tuch is one of those guys. Like, he is a player who started his career really in Vegas. Like Minnesota, he played a little bit, but he really made his mark in the NHL, like in Vegas, and is a Golden Knight. So he's going to get a hell of an ovation at T-Mobile Arena. Krebs obviously was brand new. He barely played here, but the fans will be excited to see him too. I'm excited to see him playing better than I thought he was going to. In Vegas, he quickly was doing not much, to be honest. Like, he just wasn't, like, he would just kind of, you'd watch a whole game and not realize he played. And I was concerned that, like, okay, this guy was the 17th overall pick. Is he going to be like third line player? Like, is that his ceiling? Third line player that kind of just grinds, and he's a good energy guy. Like, he skates. You notice him on the ice because he's a water bug. He's flying all over the place. Like, the guy, the energy he has on the forecheck is great, but I just didn't know if he'd have anything more than that. And like you said, he goes to Buffalo. He gets a bigger role than he ever would have gotten in Vegas, especially at this young of an age. And he's showing that he does have that skill that made him a first-round pick. So I'm excited for both those guys to be playing as well as they are. It's going to be fun to watch them.
I have one last question on the video for Tuch, and I love the kid. Are they going to put the Braden Holtby paddle save in the Stanley Cup Finals in that package or no?
I do not think so. That poor guy will never live that down. Poor Tucky.
I'm sorry. My apologies, Mr. Tuch. What a save. Hey, what a save. For 3 goalies, 1 mic here. Talk about our favorite saves. It's either the 2-pad stack windmill glove save when you catch it or the diving out with the paddle. And
paddle's
remember,
fun.
that wasn't on the ice. That was a good half foot off the ice. And
how about
2-1 in an elimination game?
How about your guy Malcolm Subban from Vegas making possibly the save of the year behind the back? Nobody saw it either. Nobody saw it happen in real time because it was like there was so much commotion going on, and then they watched like
sent me the replay, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Like that save was insane.
That's
crazy. Subban, man. Subban makes the hardest saves and misses the easiest ones. He was another guy that I love talking to in Vegas. I really like Malcolm.
Well, Alex
Subban.
Tuch says that's like his best friend. It was like his best friend in Vegas.
Yeah. That guy, Subban, he makes all the toughest saves. Any 10-bell save, he's making it 100 times out of 100. But if you float it in from the point, he'll miss it. Poor guy.
You know what's funny? Hey, quick note on Subban, and I don't know if you ever got to this when you talked to him. He ever tell you about how he didn't start playing goalie till he was 13?
Yep.
That's
why I got to play 2 years against him, and I'm like, there's no way this kid started 3 years ago.
Right.
He stepped right
ridiculously
in.
Some people just have that athletic ability, right? Like they just
he stepped right in after the goalie of the year, the CHL goalie of the year, Mike Murphy in Belleville. And obviously he had big shoes to fill with PK being his brother. And I'm like, wait, you're meaning to tell me this guy started 3 years ago? Like what?
Makes you feel like a shithead, doesn't it?
Yeah.
all those off ice workouts, all that hard work, and then Malcolm Subban just straps the pads on.
Right over me. But he also got to play with Philip Grubauer, which was interesting. The connections that you see in the OHL. Jesse, I know that you've gone over your time with us. I really appreciate it. I got nothing else, Duane. You got anything for him?
No, man. Thanks again, Jesse. Appreciate it. And like I said, hopefully you said you're definitely coming to Buffalo when Jack Eichel makes his debut, coming back to the 716.
So we're taking him out for wings, right?
I fully expect you to get us to be in contact and meet out for beers and wings. And we're not going to Anchor Bar either. Nothing against Anchor Bar, but everyone comes to Buffalo. They got to go to Anchor Bar. No, that's not
a barbell guy.
Yeah. Barbell, Gabriel's Gate. There's a lot of good places in here for wings, hole in the wall places. We're not going to Anchor Bar.
Cool. Can't wait.
All right, man.
Jesse, thanks for your time, bro.
Thanks for your help. Thanks for your time,
awesome.
Jesse.
Later, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. Cully, that's a phenomenal interview.
What interview? I got a few minutes here before I got to head out for my goalie lesson. Jesse's a tremendous guy. 3 goalies, 1 mic. It's always fun when we get another goalie on.
Yep.
But he's done a great job. I really encourage. He briefly mentioned. Maybe, Duane, maybe you can find it, that article he wrote that he was referring to about Tuch. Yeah,
maybe I'll ask him to send it to me directly. I'm sure he has that tap.
Because Jesse's a phenomenal writer. And if he touted that article as being something special, it's something special. Because even his average work, like what he considers average, is great. Like he's a phenomenal writer. He really brings life to his columns. I don't even know if they call them columns anymore. I'm so outdated.
Yeah, it's so much different today than it was 10 years ago. When you talk to these analysts and these writers about hockey, like everything's changed so much, man, so much. But
can I say one thing about Logan Thompson? So many of you may not know this, but Brock University is right over the border. It's located in St. Catharines. For example, when I played for the Ice Dogs, I billeted in Thorold, and I was in I live with a family, of course, but we were in the how like they have zoning, like the student village. Like I was right next to Brock. This guy goes out. He plays. Looks like 4 years for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Puts up some decent numbers, and then goes to Brock. 18-6, 934. Awesome numbers there. Goes to the Signs right after that first year in Brock. which is a big deal because as soon as you sign pro after you start your school package, he was basically giving it up. Like it was at that point when he left Rock, he was saying, I'm going all in. He starts in the Adirondack Thunder in the East Coast League, goes to the Binghamton Devils, South Carolina Stingrays in 1920. Then the Vegas Golden Knights pick him up in 2020. He gets one game in there, and then plays for the Henderson Silver Knights. Same thing this year. 1 goal for the Vegas Golden Knights, 3.23 goals against, 885. I know it's a tiny sample size.
Yeah.
But his AHL numbers from the last 2 years, 2020-21, 196 goals against average, 943 save percentage. This year, 262 goals against average, or goals against, 928 save percentage. I'd like to think, going back to our point, I think he's ready. I think
I'm not saying he's not ready. I just think if you're
you never know, you brought up a good point. You never know until you throw him in there.
You know, I me personally, if I'm Vegas, I am making that trade sooner rather than later, or at least dress him for a couple of games here to see if the guy can handle the challenge.
Wouldn't you have to put what's his name on waivers?
I don't know. I mean, is he on the taxi squad? Can you just make that?
I'm not sure.
I don't know how that works.
Not an injury or like a coach. I'm not sure. That's a great question.
I just think that you need to get him some games and just to kind of really come to the conclusion if this kid can handle the role. I know Jesse said, like, if Robin Leonard gets hurt, they're not winning the cup. But just because you would assume that's the case doesn't mean at least prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? So I think that you have to do your due diligence on that kid and make sure that he can handle a workload, of more than, what I mean? Just one game isn't a big enough sample size at the professional level. It just isn't. I would like to see them. And if that were to come, I would love it as much as I hate to see a guy like Craig Anderson leave Buffalo, because I think he's a phenomenal locker room guy. He's played so well for us. I would love to see a guy like him win a cup. Yeah, a couple clicks for Craigie Anderson. And I'd love to see him have the opportunity to win a cup. I know you probably don't want to uproot your family or uproot your life from one side of the country to the other, but I mean, this could be your last chance.
I think he's been used to it, man. Yeah. Ever since his Ottawa days were over, he's been all over the place.
I just want to see a guy like him have one last crack at a cup. He's such a good dude.
Agree.
And
he's an ambassador for the position, Duane.
100%.
I can't wait to have him on one day. I think it would be. I think
he would come on with us. I think he
100% once he retires.
I remember when in Ottawa, his wife Nicole was battling cancer, and that was a big storyline for them during that run. He was playing while she was going through that, and she was always in the crowd. And
so cool to see how everybody rallied around her, not just in Ottawa, but like the whole hockey world. And to see like the strength, like he played the night that they found out that she was out of remission and the cancer was back with a vengeance. And I still remember him giving the press conference. And what was so cool? Nicole was right next to him. Yep. And it fucking brought tears to my eyes. And ever since then, I've been
anybody knows who's dealt with cancer, themselves or with a loved one knows like that type of battle that is and what it does to the body and what it does to the family around them. So, for him to perform as well as he did, and not just that, but just, go through those mental tribulations that obviously you're going through as a professional athlete, knowing that at home, the person you love the most in this world is fighting for their life every day and waging war in, the biggest war anyone's ever waged in their body every single day. I mean, again, a couple clicks for Craig Anderson and Nicole Anderson, a couple of, a power couple in hockey, if you ask me, that they made it all the way here and, that she's doing well and very healthy. And, he's still playing hockey at 40, 41 years old. I'd love to see him go to Vegas and have one last crack at a cup.
So to finish up, because I got to head out here. I don't know if let me know. Tweet at me at KidCully33 on Twitter. I have Spectrum, and I know I might be in the minority as everybody changes, but I could not watch on MSG. It was like I was having like an epileptic seizure. It was cutting in and out the whole game. Doing. I know I called you about it. See if you were having the same issues on DirecTV. You weren't. If anybody else on Spectrum was having that issue, let me know. It made the game unwatchable. I watched football instead and watched the game recap. Obviously, a tough team to go against in Colorado. Anytime you get fall behind.
They didn't play terrible, though. I'll give them that. It wasn't terrible. I think that Buffalo, considering the lack of talent, the huge disparity in talent between Colorado and Buffalo, I thought they played well. Again, you had Dustin Tokarski making his first start, and I don't know how long after struggling.
You just can't give up that first goal against that team.
And you mentioned the mistake Middlestat made on that play. Now he's hurt again.
So it's interesting. Really quick, and we'll end on this. We talked about how Pete DeBoer runs a system where the first guy back is the center, right?
Yep.
And not every coach does that. I know John Cooper does in Tampa, a very like a variable of that. But just to break down that goal, ideally when the puck's in the corner, the defensive zone corner, you have a defenseman, man on man with the puck, and you have your center, on the D side of that battle, but also marking their second lowest forward, and you have your other D in front. But if both D end up in the corner and, they're interchangeable, right? Those two D in the center. Casey even did a decent job of shoulder checking. It's just, that's how fast this game is. And you mentioned, Duane, that he's not quite up to full speed. I think that's what caught him. Part of your job there is to make sure that pass doesn't get through backdoor. It did. I think that the game might go differently there. Like against the number one team in the league, you can't give up that first goal on the road. And they did. It was in Colorado, correct? Yeah.
And I'm seeing right now, a couple different sources on Twitter. I'm not sure how reliable these are, but they're saying that Casey Middlestat was pulled as a precaution day to day, because watching him, he wasn't ready. He wasn't game ready.
Look, you told me that the first game I wasn't able to
first
see
rift,
first game back.
He didn't have that first step. He just didn't have the first step. He couldn't keep up, and it looked like he was skating with cement blocks on his feet. And I don't disagree. Yeah, pull him out if he's not ready. There's no reason.
Yeah, get him up to full speed. I know I can understand the horniness to get him back in the lineup, but let's get him back when he's ready. We have the Sabres and Golden Knights tomorrow, 10 p.m. I know it's a late one, but I'll be tuning in for that as I'm getting home. Right, probably for puck drop. After that, we have I don't want to say a light week, but Thursday we host the Blue Jackets, and then Sunday the 13th we are in Montreal. Interesting. Carey Price held a press conference today. Really interesting to see what happens there with their new hiring of their GM, and what direction that team goes into. Carey obviously is battling, I believe it was substance abuse and his knee. He said he's had a couple of setbacks with his knee. It'll be interesting to see there. And then, after that, we finish off, February. We have a pretty jam-packed schedule. You go from the 15th to the 20th, you have 4 games in there. It goes Islanders, Senators, Avalanche, Blue Jackets. It doesn't get any easier. And then right after trade deadline, Duane's favorite team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Sabres will make the trip up there. So
isn't that the Heritage Classic game too?
I have no idea.
The outdoor game. I think that's coming up in March. It's like a 4:00 or like a 4:00 start. No, they're playing the outdoor game. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Against the Maple Leafs. Yeah. The outdoor game.
I'm an idiot.
But just a reminder too, tomorrow night is an ESPN Plus game, so you have to have the app ESPN Plus to watch. Hopefully we'll see Bucci on the call for that game. He's always an absolute beaut. Hopefully a future guest of Two Goalies when Mikey's agreed to come out with us at some point, so we'll have him on too. So
that's huge.
Yeah, and I'm pretty much tapped. I
am too. I got to head to the rink. So thank you everybody for listening. Do you have an ad read?
Just brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over there on George Urban Boulevard. For your game day or game night needs, get over to Outlet Liquor on George Urban Boulevard.
For Duane Steinell, I'm Johnny Cullen. This has been episode 83 with 3 goalies, 1 mic. Jesse Granger, thanks for your time. Beat reporter for The Athletic. Duane's going to try to pull that article about Tuch out of the archives. But we'll see everybody in a couple days. Right. Thanks for your time, and let's go Sabres.
Let's go Sabres.